Tamam. Right. We're live with audio.
With her good friends Blake Lively and
Okay, guys, we just turned on the live feed, so watch what you say. All right, we're going to start when it's exactly 5:30, but before that, I'll just remind everyone to please silence any cell phones. Oh, in fact, I need to silence my cell phone. Oh, yeah.
Who reset the clock?
I don't know.
The clock is right.
Oh,
It
yeah.
is right now. Yeah, I heard Dean and Alex talking about it earlier, so I presume one of them may have done it.
Good evening, everyone, and welcome to the Brevard City Council regular meeting. I just want to welcome everybody that has joined us here in person at City Hall, and also for everyone who is watching online. And I understand now we're not just on Facebook, but we are also on YouTube. So you've got even more ways to watch and stay abreast of what's going on. I want to go ahead and introduce everybody who is sitting up here. On my far right, we have our city attorney, Mac McKellar. Next to him, we have City Councilman Maurice Jones. Then we have City Councilwoman Geraldine Dinkins, City Councilman Mac Morrow. I'm Mayor Maureen Kopoloff. On my left, we have our city clerk, Denise Hodgson. Next to Denise, we have Mayor Pro Tem and Council Member Gary Daniel. Next, we have Council Member Aaron Baker. And on my far left, we have our City Manager, Wilson Hooper. At this point, I would like to ask Norm Bossert from our Brevard Jewish community to please come up and give tonight's invocation.
Good evening, everybody.
Evening.
I really labored to have a nice invocation for you until I saw my wife tonight. She told me I needed to change it, so I don't know if I should just toss this in the trash.
Uh-oh.
She, God bless her.
So she's
I'm going with the originals.
We won't tell her.
Yeah.
When I became a school administrator, the day before I decided to do that, she said I had no talent for that. And so the next day I went to school and I took the job. Heavenly Father, we are gathered together with this body of city councilors, appreciative of our community, its citizens, our neighbors, and the beauty we find here in Brevard. We do ask your blessing for the deliberations of our council deliberations our council enters into tonight. May their decisions represent the will of their constituents during these tumultuous times. Thank you, God, for the opportunity to be here tonight. Amen.
Amen.
Amen. Thank you, Norm. Would everyone please stand and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance? Attention, honor, pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, Madam Clerk, do we have a quorum?
Yes, Madam Mayor, you have a quorum. All members are present.
Okay, council members, you got the draft agenda sent to you. Are there any proposed changes to the draft agenda?
Madam Mayor, I have one recommendation. We no longer need the closed session for economic development. However, we are going to need the other three.
Okay, so we'll remove number 2. Any other changes to the agenda? Do I have a motion to approve the modified agenda?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
The agenda is approved. Council, you got the draft minutes of the September 5th, 2023 regular meeting. Are there any corrections or changes to the minutes? Do I have a motion to approve?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Minutes are approved. Public comments. Okay. The public is invited to speak during public comment at this time on any topic unless it is a public hearing item on this agenda. And we do have 4 public hearing items. So if you want to speak on any of those, you need to have signed up on the other sheets. Anyone who wants to speak must register with the city clerk, which is the sign-up sheet. When it's your turn, step to the podium in front of city council. State your name and your address clearly. Limit your comments to 3 minutes or less and avoid repetition. Direct comments to the full council, not to an individual council member or to staff. And groups are encouraged to appoint a spokesperson on their behalf. I will call people up in the order in which you signed. The first one is, and I'm going to do my very best to try and read your names as you wrote them, but it would really help, folks, if sometimes you just printed them a little clearly. Jane Malwito?
Malwitz.
Malwit. Oh, Jane Malwit.
Witz.
Thank you, Jane.
Good evening. Thank you very much. Okay. I'm Jane Mollitz. My address is on file. I think that we can all agree that there is animosity and division in our community. I believe that providing open, honest transparency is a start, and I would like to thank you for your efforts in doing a video on YouTube for tonight's meeting, the agenda. That was very helpful, and also live streaming the city council meetings on YouTube. I'm concerned about the potential reappointment you will be considering later this evening for a member of the planning board. The member being suggested by the committee has made comments such as Brevard is about to get lit, and most recently on his planning board application, he wants to guide the city of Brevard towards maximizing its potential, especially as we're on the cusp of a breakout moment. Is this representative of the changes we want in Brevard? I thought we were looking to preserve the charm and what makes Brevard special, not another Asheville. This planning board member has also displayed questionable moral values, posting vulgar images online. They have posted several divisive, hateful rhetoric against people in our community, and went so far as to post a video mocking people from Appalachia and the Native people in our area. Is this the lack of decorum really what the city of Brevard wants representing them? I would urge the city council to reconsider the other qualified applicants and help move towards unity in our community. I apologize, but I do have another commitment, but I look forward to watching the remainder of the meeting online later this evening. Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, our next speaker is Andy Honer. Thank you, Andy.
I'm shorter, so I'll go down a little bit. How's that?
Is that fine?
That's
Yeah.
good. Yes.
Thank you. It's wonderful to be here this evening. I thank you very much. I'm Andy Honer. I'm at 448 3 Mile Knob Road in Brevard. On November 30th, I don't know if all of you have found out or anything, but the Habitat of Humanity won the Chamber of Commerce Nonprofit of the Year. And on October 1st, Jimmy Carter turned 99. So I'm sure he was looking down with everybody with the Habitat. He said, "We have become small players in exciting global effect to alleviate homelessness." Rosalind said, "If you could see the expressions on the faces of the people when we give them a Bible and then give them the keys to their houses, it's just so inspiring and emotional." I started volunteering at the Habitat 10 years ago, and my friend has been 17 years ago. And just in 2020, I just want to give you a few statistics. I am so proud that they got this award, that they deserve one at least every year. Over 257 adults and children have been served since 1984. 77 Habitat homes have been built in Transylvania County. 55,898 has been paid in property taxes by Habitat homeowners in 2020. 10 million invested in the Transylvania County homes to date. Now, this one I'm very proud of. We have 28 volunteers at the Habitat for Humanity, and in any organization, to get 5 volunteers, you're lucky. 28 volunteers, we had 8,500 average number of annual volunteer hours. That's annual volunteer hours. And we have done 600 annual average tons of landfill diversion from the Restore donations. Our store, I am so proud of everything.
30
that you
seconds.
do. I am so proud to be a part of it, and I hope to, Jimmy Carter has 35 years with the Habitat, and I hope to do 35 years also. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Honer. And I will just add my congratulations to Habitat. I was there Friday night when they got that award, and it was wonderful. I think you had the biggest crowd of supporters that attended that gala, but it was wonderful recognition for one of our nonprofits. Okay, our next speaker is Mr. James Carley.
Thank you, ladies and gentlemen of the council, and thank you, public, for turning out tonight. I always love seeing an engaged and enthused public citizenry. I'll keep my statements very brief. First of all, I want to express gratitude for the leadership this council has shown in the times that we have that are very divided, and as changes are surging around our country and our world and in this community. And I want to thank the community for taking an active interest in participating in local meetings. Planning, as you know, is the art and the science of examining data about long-term trends far into the future in order to understand what, if any, policies and plans should be adjusted today to ensure that those trends help and not hurt the community. Effective planning puts people first and at the center of the plans. And it is a collaborative effort among residents old and new, and old and young and native and from the outside. This is why I always love seeing an engaged and enthused public who takes the interest in engaging officials, because it shows that you care. And good cities thrive when people care. I have enjoyed my participation in the planning board so far. Working on the comprehensive land use plan was a very hands-on exercise that I believe we have developed a very optimistic plan and vision for the future of the city of Brevard, and I am excited about taking an active role in helping to move the components of that plan forward. And I don't see why it's a bad thing to want to maximize this town's potential, because we have a lot of wonderful assets and promise in this community, and there are lots of changes that are coming through the pipelines in the next 10, 20, 30 years because of very big macro trends. So I want to thank you for your consideration for this reappointment. And if you have any questions about anything that I do that's not related to the city council or city government, by all means, I'm an open book. You can ask me, and I'm happy to answer any questions. I fully support our indigenous communities. I've spoken in international fora on the rights of the indigenous and their roles in stewarding the rights of nature. And sure, the inside jokes about whether you pronounce it Appalachia or Appalachia. I went to App State. My grandfather and great-grandfather from Knoxville, Tennessee, descendants of the Scots-Irish settlers to those parts. I've got deep roots in this community. I love it very passionately. So if I make comments about, oh, Appalachia or Appalachia, that's just because I spent time in the cold Yankee North where everybody says Appalachia, and then I hear a bunch of Southerners come down here and say, oh, that's not how you say it. So that's all that stuff. But I'm very excited to stay engaged in city government and to really help the city of Brevard maximize its potential and navigate the challenges ahead. Thank you for your consideration.
Thank you, Mr. Carley. Our next speaker is Mr. Sam Edney.
Well, I'm sure you all will be glad to hear that I'm not here to complain about potholes or parking spaces. I'm Sam Edney. I live at 20 Deer Run in Deer Lake. I'm here to thank staff of the city of Brevard. On September 23rd, we held our second annual Freedom Festival over at Silverstein Park. And we served 300 plates of barbecue there and 291 servings of ice cream. So we had about 300 people attend that. There was a lot of concern because the restoration on Norton Creek was underway, and there was concern about safety and accessibility and the appearance. But because of the coordination of Wesley Shook at Public Works, everything worked out well. Thank you to Wesley for coordinating with the stabilization contractor. Things went swimmingly well with Janice Pinson guiding us through site and signage permits, and she coordinated with other departments to help us out. Thanks to Tyree Griffin, who helped us coordinate with site information and guidance about the process. Thanks to Steve Woodson, who has retired, and then Captain Aaron Thompson of the police department. We felt very safe. We had the full cooperation of the police department closing off the street for safety for our kids. And also Bobby Cooper of the fire department. We had a fire truck there for the kids' enjoyment. So we understand that any group that wants to utilize city facilities is going to have that same level of cooperation and support. So please pass on our thank yous to staff.
Thank you, Mr. Edney. All right, and that is everyone who has signed up for public comment. We will move on to our certificates, awards, and recognition. And we have two proclamations. Our first one is on Fire Prevention Month. There are additional seats, please, folks, come in. Get some of the open chairs here. Don't just stand. Oh, yeah. And we've got some more seats in the front. There's some sort of in the back, too. No? Okay. Oh, so fantastic. You know, I stand up here on a lot of months, and I read these proclamations. And these proclamations are really about things that are important. They are about things that we want you to take a few minutes to think about. And so today we have two, and the first one is on fire prevention. And I want to thank Adam Huey from our fire department for coming up here. I believe you're in charge of our fire prevention program. So this is proclamation number 2023, text 17, Fire Prevention Month, October 2023. Whereas the city of Brevard has been committed to ensuring the safety and security of all those living in and visiting Brevard, and whereas the 2023 Fire Prevention Week theme is, quote, cooking safety starts with you. Pay attention to fire prevention, unquote. Effectively serves to remind us to stay alert and use caution when cooking to reduce the risk of kitchen fires. And whereas cooking is the leading cause of home fires in the United States, and fire departments respond to more than 166,400 annually between 2016 and 2020. Whereas 2 of every 5 home fires start in the kitchen, with 31% of these fires resulting from unattended cooking. Whereas more than half of reported non-fatal home cooking fires injuries occurred when the victims tried to fight the fire themselves. And whereas children under 5 face a higher risk of non-fire burns associated with cooking than being burned in a cooking fire. And whereas residents should turn pot handles toward the back of the stove, always keep a lid nearby when cooking, keep a 3-foot kid-free zone around the stove, oven, and other things that could get hot, watch what they heat, and set a timer to remind them that they are cooking. And whereas the Brevard Fire Department is dedicated to reducing the occurrence of home fires and home fire injuries through prevention and protection education. Now therefore, I, Mayor Maureen Kopoloff, and the Brevard City Council do hereby proclaim October 2023 as Fire Prevention Month throughout this community. We urge all citizens to check their kitchens for fire hazards and use safe cooking practices, and to support the many public safety activities and efforts of Brevard's fire and emergency services. Thank you, Adam, for everything the fire department.
Yeah, we're gonna be out a lot this month, going to the schools, seeing the kids. We'll reach about 1,500 kids this month, just going out, spreading the information about cooking safety and everything else, so. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, and our next proclamation is on Breast Cancer Awareness Month. And that is one of the reasons why you see many of us sitting up here wearing pink, because pink is, of course, breast cancer awareness. And this is one of those items that affects the lives of not just the person that gets breast cancer, but of their families and their friends. And so we want to take a few minutes to just talk about it, to think about the statistics, and to keep awareness that this still really is one of those health issues that exists in our community. So, proclamation number 2023, TAC 18, Breast Cancer Awareness Month, October 2023. Whereas the city of Brevard joins our nation in recognizing October as Breast Cancer Awareness Month. Whereas breast cancer is the most commonly diagnosed cancer among women in the United States, and is the second leading cause of cancer deaths among women in North Carolina and our nation. Whereas early detection can be an effective tool in combating breast cancer, with regular screenings preventing 15 to 30% of all deaths from breast cancer in women over 40. When diagnosed while still confined to the breast, the 5-year relative survival rate is 99%. Whereas, on average, every 2 minutes a woman is diagnosed with breast cancer in the United States. And whereas 1 in 8 women in the United States will be diagnosed with breast cancer in her lifetime, and although rare, men get breast cancer too. Whereas in 2023, an estimated 297,790 new cases of invasive breast cancer are expected to be diagnosed in women in the U.S. And whereas in 2023, an estimated 2,800 new cases of invasive breast cancer are expected to be diagnosed in men in the U.S. And whereas in 2023, an estimated 43,700 women and 530 men will die from breast cancer in the U.S. Whereas the City of Brevard encourages citizens to talk with their healthcare providers about regular screenings, examinations, and mammograms, and to practice self-examination. Now therefore, I, Mayor Maureen Koploff, and Brevard City Council do hereby proclaim October 2023 as Breast Cancer Awareness Month in the city of Brevard, North Carolina, and call on all citizens to join us in recognizing and commend this observance to all citizens. Thank you. We are going to move on to our public hearings. We have 4 of them tonight. Our first public hearing is on pathways to removing obstacles to housing, PRO housing, federal grant application. And Emily Brewer from our planning department is going to give the presentation.
Yes, I can. There we go. Okay. Sorry about that. So today I am sharing the staff's grant proposal for the federal pro-housing grant opportunity. So in July, the White House announced $85 million in federal grant funding for communities across the country to identify and remove barriers to affordable housing, production, and preservation. This program, the Pathways to Removing Obstacles to Housing, or Pro-Housing Grant, is administered through the U.S. Department of Housing and Urban Development as a component of the CDBG program. This grant is intended to highlight the efforts of communities that have shown commitment to addressing the housing crisis and support projects that create long-term affordable housing. As part of this, something that makes it very unique is that priority is given to communities that have shown a commitment to affordable housing and addressing this crisis, to projects that support long-term affordable housing, and communities that have an acute demand for affordable housing. And HUD has actually gone in and identified those priority geographies for us. So Transylvania County was identified as a priority geography for this program, so we're very excited to be moving forward with this. The grant awards are anticipated to be between $1 million and $10 million. And then there is no local match that's required, but staff time and city investment count as leverage. So that's a little bit of information about what the program is. But what exactly are they looking to accomplish? The types of barriers that they're seeking to remove are the restrictive regulatory, zoning, and land use policies, outdated procedures or permitting processes, inadequate or deteriorating infrastructure, threats from environmental or natural hazards, and then if there's other impediments that cities or applicants, identify as barriers. So we are really proposing something to address the inadequate or deteriorating infrastructure, the lack of financial resources, and threats from environmental and natural hazards. The proposal, the draft of which is in your packets for review, and I'll give you some information about where you can also find that on our website in just a little bit, but is really in 2 parts. So the first grant-funded activity is extending sewer sewer utilities into the Azalea rhododendron neighborhood in Transylvania County. This is just outside of the corporate limits within our extraterritorial jurisdiction. This is a predominantly low-income neighborhood that is plagued with failing septic systems that are costly to repair. Extending sewer utilities in this area will address a major public health concern, preserve naturally occurring affordable housing that's found in the area, and create a favorable environment for developers to create new housing opportunities on the many vacant parcels. This is something that we're very excited about. This has been a project in the past. It was in 2020, there was a CDBGI program application that was not able to move forward, but this is really exciting because there's no local match that's required and is really an opportunity to capitalize on a lot of the investment that we've been putting into affordable housing. This project would reach 125 residential parcels and allow them to connect to sewer. 50 of them are low to moderate income households, 50 out of 93 occupied households. And I'll show you a map in just a moment. The other grant-funded activity is to endow the City of Brevard's Housing Trust Fund for affordable housing preservation programs. These programs will enable low-income homeowners to rehabilitate existing affordable housing units, improve the quality and the safety of their homes, and remain in the community and avoid displacement. The Housing Trust Fund investment will really implement a lot of the city's housing strategies that we have in the comprehensive land use plan and what's been identified by the Housing Committee as really, really important priorities for us. This really is preserving affordable housing throughout the city's entire jurisdiction, entire planning jurisdiction, so both the corporate limits and the extraterritorial jurisdiction. The Housing Trust Fund has eligibility requirements that require funding goes to low-income households with a guaranteed affordability of at least 15 years. The investment in these preservation programs, home repairs, tap fee reimbursement, and all of these other things really partner and pair well with the extension of sewer into the Azalea rhododendron neighborhood, really trying to make sure that preservation is the key of this program. And pairing those together will further ensure that residents in the Azalea rhododendron neighborhood are able to stay in their homes and take advantage of the existing, of the sewer extension and the opportunities that are afforded to them in this neighborhood. This is something that we're very excited about. The preservation programs have been an interest of the Housing Committee for quite some time. We've gotten tons of people who have talked to us about how important home repair is for them and how they would be very excited to participate in this. Staff anticipates that with about $1 million and change, there could be 75 to 200 low to moderate income households benefit from this program, which, of course varies depending on the level of investment that's required and what type of improvements are done. So in order to qualify for this kind of housing program, they would apply through the Housing Trust Fund and be able to go through that process, and City Council would be the ultimate authority deciding where the funding goes. So we would use our Housing Trust Fund to be able to utilize this funding. This is a map of the Azalea rhododendron neighborhood that shows the survey results from our 2020 CDBG program application. This shows where a lot of the failing septic systems are within the community, as well as those that are low to moderate income households as of 2020, when the income survey was conducted. Income surveys were required of the previous grant program. This one is on a very expedited timeline, and so income surveys are not required at this moment, but we're utilizing this past information to demonstrate the need, and we think is very compelling to include as well. This will be a City of Brevard program. The City of Brevard would be the lead entity for this. It's a little small, but the planning department will serve as the project managers for this with Paul Ray, the planning director, and myself. And then we have a number of other kind of components of this program. The first kind of gray bar is the infrastructure extension. and we'll work with the Public Works Department and a engineering and construction contractor to be able to help us actually put the infrastructure in the ground, and work closely with Transylvania County Health Department on all of their efforts for remediation and addressing some of these outstanding septic issues. And then once, of course, the sewer lines are up and running, we'll work closely with the wastewater treatment plant operator and their entire department to make sure that they have all the information that they need and that things are functioning properly. As it relates to the preservation programs, I will be leading a lot of that in close coordination with the Housing Committee. As I said, the Housing Committee will be the ones that are reviewing the applications and be able to really make those decisions on that. And then we'll be coordinating with the housing providers and partners that can help us in actually executing these things, and the various funding applicants and awardees. So really trying to make sure that we're thinking holistically on how we can address the housing problems that we have here, and creating a very diversified team to make sure that we can get this done efficiently. So a little bit about the pro-housing criteria. The number one thing for this is need. Really being able to demonstrate that there's a need for housing, and that we as the city have made an investment and have really put in the time and effort to be able to move this forward. As I said, this is a really unique component of any kind of federal funding opportunities, is demonstrating that commitment that the city has towards affordable housing. The second is that priority geography. Because Transylvania County is identified as a priority geography, we automatically get 10 points, which is pretty remarkable. Then there's an additional 3 points for all of our information that we have about the affordable housing need and how the problem is continuing to grow. And then the last part of that need is identifying key barriers. And this is something that we've been working on for quite some time, is really being understand why affordable housing has not been coming to Brevard and what we can do to fix it. And by identifying those barriers, we're able to move forward and really put together this proposal. And so that is something we're very excited about, being able to show all of the work that we have already been doing on affordable housing and figuring out what some of the missing items are. So then we focus on the soundness of approach, which are, of course, the project vision, how many people are impacted, what kind of level of engagement do we have, and the budget and timeline, of course. So then, as I mentioned, there's that capacity part of it. So making sure that we are a staff that has thought about all of the different partners that we will need to talk with and work with as we move forward with this plan, and making sure that we're really thinking holistically. And then leverage. As I mentioned, there is no match that's required as part of this program, but any kind of funding or non-financial contributions count towards the program. The city has been working to quantify the amount of staff time and some of these other things that we will need to be able to put forth to work on this sewer extension project, but also on all of the preservation programs, and be able to use that as a demonstrated commitment and contribution that the city is making to this program. And then, of course, having a long-term effect. This is something that I mentioned briefly, but understanding the expected impact and the outcomes and how we can make a difference in addressing these key barriers in perpetuity is something that is really important as part of this. So these are the funding criteria and the way that the actual grant is structured. I hope that provides a little more clarity around the actual document that you all have and why it's structured in the way that it is. But really, it's about showing that we have this need for affordable housing, and that the city of Brevard is taking an interest and has a demonstrated commitment to making these changes and addressing these barriers. So it's a very quick turnaround for timeline. The funding opportunity was released just at the beginning of September. So tonight is the public hearing where we're able to collect feedback on this. All of the feedback that's collected, both, between now and October 18th, whether it's by phone, email, the form on the website, or here at the public comment, will all be incorporated. It's very important for us to be able to hear what works and what the needs are, and also be able to incorporate all of that for HUD to see and be able to use in their determination. So we will be having public comments. We're already accepting public comments. Of course, the public hearing today is a key piece of that. And we will be accepting public comments until October 18th. And the reason why it's October 18th is because the application is due on October 30th. We want to make sure that everybody's comments are really documented and incorporated into the grant application. One of the other outstanding items is that sewer connection without annexation to resolve a health and safety hazard for housing. This is something that is coming up on your agenda very soon. And then the vote on that item would be on October 16th. And I will put a pin in that because it's about to come up right after this. And then it's a very quick turnaround, not only for completing the grant application, but also being able to start the project. So the awards are expected to come out in November or December. And then the official start date for the project would be January 31st of 2024. So we're very excited about this opportunity. We hope that it becomes a way for us to brag on all of the work that we've been doing and capitalize on all the research and work that we've done and really be able to make, to secure some funding to get a number of barriers addressed. So for public comment and information, as I mentioned, this is a really key part of this, and every comment received will be incorporated into the grant application. So there's a number of different ways that the public or anybody can comment on this. Would be first speaking at the public hearing tonight, of course. Next, I have all of the information for the grant application and a form to fill out comments at cityofbrevard.com/pro-housing. And then you can also, of course, email me at emily.brewer@cityofbrevard.com with any written comments or questions. And then you can contact the planning department upstairs at 828-885-5630, and I will be happy to take any comments verbally as well and make sure that those are incorporated. I'm very excited about this opportunity, if you couldn't tell. And I hope that that if there's any questions, you all feel comfortable asking me and that we can make this a really collaborative document and project moving forward. And with that, I will hand it back to you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you, Emily. At this point, we will open the public hearing. The public is asked to adhere to the following guidelines for the public hearing. Register with the city clerk by printing your name, address, and phone number on the sign-in sheet, which is what you did when you came in. When it is your turn, step to the podium in front of City Council. State your name and address clearly. Be concise, avoid repetition, and limit your comments to 5 minutes or less. Direct comments to the full council, not to an individual council member or to staff. This is a time to provide your comments, but not to ask questions. A public hearing is not an appropriate venue for a question and answer session. Designate a spokesperson for large groups. Each person may speak once for a specific public hearing. Audio, visual, digital, and other forms of electronic presentations will not ordinarily be allowed. Okay, I will call people up in the order in which they signed. Our first speaker is Mr. Doug Powell.
Good evening, Mayor, City Council, and staff. My name is Doug Powell. I recently purchased a home on Oakdale Road, which is in the sewer line extension project area in question. I recently had a septic tank inspection and received a recommendation to replace the failing tank at a significant expense. Despite the fact that I may directly benefit from a brand-new sewer line on Oakdale, I'm here tonight to speak against the grant application. Why? Because so-called free money is never free. It always comes with strings attached. In my review of the documentation of this particular federal program, it is not clear what those strings are. And there are always strings. I hope you can enlighten us tonight of what those may be if you have had time to read the fine print. In any case, I trust the city knows exactly what they are signing up for. I have seen firsthand the detrimental effects of what an influx of federal money can do to small towns and cities. It is often received with the best of intentions to solve one problem, more often than not doesn't, and at the same time creates 3 more problems that you or another council will have to deal with in the future. I'm not questioning the motives or intent of the city, planning department, or the council. I understand you are trying to solve a problem of housing affordability, and this seems like a possible answer. But what is the long-term trade-off for the city of Brevard? Some low and moderate income persons in the neighborhood might benefit, and yet others will not. So which citizens are more important? Once a sewer line is in place, that is one step into incorporating this area into the city of Brevard and new city taxes. And I would imagine that many in the neighborhood with a working septic system and on a fixed income will not be able to afford additional taxation. So for them, the end result will be, instead of a pathway to removing obstacles to affordable housing, it's actually a pathway to having to move out of the area because it is no longer affordable. As I've mentioned before, when the federal government is handing out free money, no matter which party is in the White House, that money comes with stipulations that can transform a community for the worse. In the past 2.5 years, I have been fortunate enough to travel 50,000 miles and visit 25 states. As a real-time example, I have seen how federal dollars distributed to towns and cities with a plan to fix some roads have led to most of that money going to infrastructure that I assure you the quaint city of Brevard does not need or want, which includes non-filtered high-intensity LED streetlights with no filters, facial recognition cameras on every traffic light, and roundabouts in remote areas where they are not needed or wanted by its citizens. One of the reasons I stand before you tonight is because Brevard in Transylvania County is uniquely different than much of the rest of the United States. Its charm, quietness, and dark mountain skies are hard to find these days. It has remained largely untouched by questionable ideas implemented primarily because of federal funding and its many strings attached. But just recently, I have noticed a disturbing trend towards that which made it unique and desirable since I first visited a few years ago. With this grant application and any others, please read the fine print and make sure you know what you are signing up for. The soul of Brevard is precious and hopefully not easily sold. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Powell. Our next speaker is Mr. Jeff Adams.
Jeff Adams, 118 Ridgeway Avenue, Etowah, and here speaking before you tonight, not in the official capacity, just for disclosure, I'm a Transylvania County Community Development Director, but here tonight as a citizen, and I think of the maybe hundreds or thousands meetings that I have been opportunity to be participant of. This is the first time I've ever spoke as a citizen, and I'm speaking on behalf of the pro-housing and in support of the fine work that the planning department's done on this application and the Land of Sky. Affordable housing, I like to joke that I come from the future, having spent 30 years working and planning, mainly in resort destination communities, Mountain West, along the coast. And affordable housing is the #1 issue, has been for 30 to 50 years. In many of these communities that I've worked in, it's just starting here. It's going to get worse. And you'll need all the tools that you can muster and all the coordination you can get. But regionally, it's a regional problem. I live in Etowah because I couldn't afford to live in Brevard. And, you know, I understand the concern and definitely sympathize and empathize with all those feelings. Always read the fine print of any grant. I've worked with many through the years, but I can't emphasize enough that you're at the beginning of the inflection point in affordable housing. I've worked in Sun Valley, Idaho, Cannon Beach, Oregon, areas that have had to face this since the 70s and 80s. There, you will need various tools. You will need various you know, the market does not solve this problem. You're going to have to do alternate strategies on this, and you'll have to use every support that you can find, whether it's regional collaboration, working across jurisdictions, because we travel from Asheville, we travel from all over to work here, and so why limit us to just this jurisdiction? I really support the work that you guys do as an elected body. Affordable housing needs to go where the infrastructure is. I work for the transportation department. I'm the director of the transportation department, and transportation needs will be one of those three growing needs. Climate change, affordable housing, transportation, they all go hand in hand. And if we don't solve these together, we don't tie them together, we've got a more difficult future for all of us. So thank you for the work that you do. Thanks, Emily. Thanks, Paul. And Mary at Land of Sky, and keep up the good work, and thank you all.
Thank you, Mr. Adams. Okay, that is everyone who signed up for this public hearing, so I will officially close this first public hearing. Moving on to our second public hearing, the proposed amendment to the City of Brevard Code of Ordinances, Chapter 2, Utility Extension Outside the Corporate Limits. And I believe our city manager, Mr. Hooper, is going to present
I'm going to ask
this.
Alex to please bring up the revised ordinance language on the screen so that our viewers can see what I'm referring to. In order to make this grant work, we need to amend the language of our Code of Ordinances, which currently requires annexation to tap on to utilities in all cases. And we are recommending revisions to that language to permit folks to tap on in certain economic development and housing situations. So to waive the annexation requirement for certain housing and economic development situations with conditions as set by the council. And so those would be set in a utility use policy that we've already started to deliberate a little bit, and that we'll deliberate more here in the weeks to come. But for the moment, I'm just proposing, and the purpose of today's hearing is to hear feedback on amendments to the ordinance language to permit such exceptions. And he's bringing it up on the screen now. There we go. Scroll down a little bit more, please, if you wouldn't mind there. Thank you, Alex. That's all I have to say.
That's it? You finished?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. We will open this public hearing. The same rules that I read for the last one apply. I will call the people who signed up in the order that you signed. Our first speaker is Angie Hunter.
Madam Mayor, council members, my name is Angie Hunter, 692 Ecusta Road. I'm the executive director of Transylvania Habitat for Humanity and a founding member of the Brevard Transylvania Housing Coalition. I'm here tonight on behalf of both organizations, so please stand if you're part of those organizations. And we respectfully ask the City Council to include specific language in the proposed amendment to the City of Brevard Code of Ordinances, Chapter 2, Utility Extension Outside Corporate Limits. Transylvania Habitat for Humanity is under contract to purchase 8.28 acres at 388 Woodland Terrace that currently has city water but no city sewer service. The parcel is zoned GR4, so the maximum allowable density is 33 units. Habitat would like to build to the maximum allowable density, but needs the city's help to accomplish this goal. Under Chapter 2, Article 5, Division 3, Section 2-292, General Principles and Requirements, Item number 3B, the proposed amendment states, wastewater collection service may be provided to residential customers outside the corporate limits of the City of Brevard in order to resolve an immediate danger to the public health and safety upon recommendation by the Transylvania County Health Department and approval by the city manager. We ask that the council include specific language that includes all new affordable housing development that guarantees affordability for 15 years or longer in item number 3B. Guaranteeing affordability can be accomplished through deed restrictions, and Habitat for Humanity currently includes such language in all deeds. This language will help to address the acute housing demand and facilitate affordable housing production as described in the Pro Housing Grant application. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Hunter. Our next speaker is Mr. Roy Hill.
I'd like to yield my time back to the floor, to the council, to avoid repetition.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Hill. Our next speaker is Mr. Richard Lindgren.
I'll do the same and yield, because Angie
Set it
all
off.
the-
Okay.
We
All right.
really look forward to your support.
Thank you very much. That is everybody who's signed up to speak, so I will now close this public hearing. Our third public hearing is the proposed amendment to the City of Brevard Code of Ordinances, Chapter 66, Parking Enforcement. And our Chief of Police, Tom Jordan, will present this.
Thank you, Mayor. Parking is hard. Parking is challenging. It doesn't matter if you're sitting up here or down here or walking in the street, parking is challenging in the city of Brevard. When I first got here back in 2021, one of the reasons I was brought here was also to modernize some of the systems that we have. One that was in desperate need was our parking system. It was antiquated, to say the least, and it lacked accountability. Just a little background, in this last budget year, we did put in to have a different parking enforcement system put into place. That was approved. But by doing so, we also have to look at the old code to make sure it's up to modern standards, and we found it was not. So there were several changes that had to be made to kind of bring it into the 21st century, nay, dare I say, the 20th century. So one of the items that had to be put into place that was lacking was some of the penalties. The penalties were attached to the code. It had to be kind of detached and attached to the fee schedule instead. Also, there was not a lot of teeth if you didn't pay your citation. Actually, there was teeth. It was just not teeth that I didn't want to put in. And that was, if you didn't pay your fines, you didn't pay your parking ticket, the only resolution the code provided was to get a warrant and arrest you. I'm not looking to arrest people in the city of Brevard for not paying their parking tickets. It's not who we are as Brevard. It's not who I am as a police chief, and not who the Brevard Police Department is at all. We don't want to put people in handcuffs for parking tickets. So that had to be changed. But we still needed a level of accountability. Our new systems are going to provide that accountability. So changes to the code are going to include that accountability, including late fees if you don't pay your fine. It's also going to account for you have more than 3 unpaid parking tickets, you might get a boot on your car. And until you pay your fines, you don't get the boot off. It also allows for towing. That comes into play too if we have emergency situations where we have to move the cars out of the road. But it allows for that, and it also allows for, I'm getting to some good stuff, so don't worry. You know, there's some happy things here. There was a cottage industry that sprung up around the city of Atlanta with people getting boots on their cars. Some entrepreneurs actually figured out how to get boots off cars, so they opened their own website and said, hey, if you got a boot in your car, just call us instead of the Atlanta, and we'll take it off. So we have some wording in there also that makes it illegal to do that. You can't remove your own boots, so we'll come and do it for you. So don't do that. Now the good stuff. One of the things the code did not have was an appeal process. I am a firm believer and adherent of due process. You have to have due process. You have to have an appeal process. So that's something with the wording that we have in now, there's an appeal process. So if you don't agree with your parking ticket, it's okay. We have an appeal process written in that's going to allow for that as well, so that we can look at those things, those gray areas, and figure out which way to go on those. So we do get this. This is a lot. This is a challenge because we do get downtown businesses that are like complaining about the number of people that just constantly park in the 2-hour parking spaces, nay, dare I say, the 20-hour parking spaces sometimes. So this is to address that and provide the teeth that we need to actually make this an accountable system. We are not looking to create a system where you're going to get a T-shirt that says I visited Brevard and all I got was this parking ticket. We're not looking to do that, but we are looking to have an accountable system that makes it easier to pay your fines and does hold people accountable and creates that movement of traffic in those parking spaces that our downtown business owners are desperately in need of, especially since we've just lost some parking spaces. So that's what the wording does. It's the wording language is specifically in the staff report for council to consider, and I would be more than happy to hear any comments. Madam Mayor, I yield the floor back to you if there are any public comments.
Thank you, Chief. I will officially open our public hearing. Nobody signed up to comment on this, and so I will, in fact, close our public hearing. Okay, moving on to our fourth public hearing. The proposed amendment to the City of Brevard Code of Ordinances, Chapter 2, the duties of the mayor, and our city manager.
I wasn't ready. Excuse me. All right, so just as a reminder, this amendment was initiated a month or so ago by some direction from the council. And the proposed language would now endow the city council with the ability to appoint members to policy and advisory committees, a power that currently is endowed to the mayor. And so it would update both the Code of Ordinances and the establishing resolution that establishes our committees to clarify that the appointment authority lies with the council now. And it sounds like what we've talked about before would be to have the mayor create a slate of recommendations for the committee membership that the council would vote on.
Thank you, Mr. Manager. We will open this public hearing. And once again, nobody signed up on this topic, so we will close the public hearing. All right, that is all four of our public hearings for tonight. We will move on to our consent and information agenda. The following items are on the consent agenda. 1, property tax releases September 2023. 2, award contract for engineer selection services to AECOM. 3, Council Parks, Trails, and Recreation Committee minutes, August 16, 2023. And 4, Council Public Safety Committee minutes, August 28, 2023. Do I have a motion to approve the consent agenda?
So moved. Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Consent is approved. Moving on to unfinished business, the Mary C. Jenkins Community Center and Parking Lot Project closeout. Dean Luby, our Finance Director, will present.
This item was originally brought before council on August 21st. Mayor Pro Tem Daniel brought up some points with the work done down at the Mary C. Jenkins Center. We met with the construction company as well as an independent architect, and we had staff out there. We've resolved a couple of the issues, and another issue we've been told by all parties where there was some cracking in the caulk in the bathroom, and then the other two main issues involved some unfinished work on dormers and some bookshelves. We're satisfied that those have been completed and that the cracking is nothing that's too serious, not a structural problem. So it's basically, the numbers have not changed in this. The total project budget was $2,660,000. The project came in about $5,000 under that total. That's the total between the building and the parking lot down there. So we are asking council to approve the project closeout, which will reverse both the budgeted and actual expenditures and revenues, and we will put an end to the capital part of that work down at Mary C. Jenkins.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Libby. Do I have a motion to approve?
So moved.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Any discussion? Mr. Morrow?
None, thanks.
Ms. Dinkins? Oops, I'll move on. Mr. Jones?
Well, I'm just happy to see the completion of the structure and the playground. It's a long time coming. I'm glad that Gary spoke out about some of the things that we'd seen. We talked about it in Rosenwald board. And I'm glad you guys looked into it and came to this conclusion.
Ms. Dinkins? We have a motion and second on the table. It's just comments.
Okay. I have no comments.
Mr. Daniel?
I happened to be there when Jim Alderman was there and spoke with him and Tyree, and my concerns were answered to my satisfaction. So.
Mr. Baker?
I have no comments.
Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? It's approved. Moving on to new business, we have the planning board appointment, and I believe the chair of our Human Resources and Finance and
Citizen Appointment Committee.
Committee, Mr. Baker.
It's a very long title. But the longer the title, the more important the committee, obviously. So our committee met and considered a handful of applications for this seat. Mr. Carley is eligible for reappointment and did reapply for the seat. And the committee is recommending his reappointment, and that recommendation was unanimous. I can say on a personal note that I know Mr. Carley pretty well. I find him to be extremely well read and researched on planning topics, and I value his opinion on that board. And so, does that motion come from the committee, or do I make a separate?
You make the motion.
Okay. I will make a motion that we reappoint Mr. James Carley to the planning board.
I'll second that.
Okay. Any further discussion? Mr. Daniel?
I have no comments.
Mr. Morrow?
Nope, good, I'm good.
Ms. Dinkins?
I am glad that Mr. Carley is stepping forward once again, and grateful to have him on this very important board. And just like he said, it's a board that needs to look way, way, way into the future. And I believe that Mr. Carley is really well suited to support that mission.
Mr. Jones?
I'm not against this, I just have questions. How deep did y'all look into the other candidates? Because there's a few more in there that.
Yeah, we certainly looked at all the candidates, and there are, like you said, there are some well-qualified folks in there. I think one of the things that we talked about at the committee, because not just with this appointment, but with several appointments, we've had more applications than seats to fill, which is always a good thing. But also want to make sure that people that apply and don't get appointed, that we can keep them engaged somehow. So we talked about potentially working with the county on some of the openings that they have as well, which I know Tricia Hogan, their clerk, just sent out the list of boards that they are looking for folks on, and potentially being able to refer people to some other openings that are not just at the city, but at the county level as well. So,
Thank you, because that addressed my concern. I'm sure Ms. Carley did an excellent job. I just know a lot of the times we have difficulty getting new people coming who want to get involved. So my thought process is try to get new people whenever you can, and those people who have already been, they can rotate back in. I feel like when we turn away people who, for the first time, want to really be vested in their community, involved, and they get turned away, maybe they don't try again. And that's the last thing I want to do. I want everybody within the community who would like an opportunity to do so, have that opportunity.
All right, we have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, it's approved. All right, and that actually concludes our business, and we will go on to remarks. And we will open with Mr. Jones.
I want to start off with thanks to the city for their assistance with a lot of events that have been taking place, mostly in the Rosenwald community. I personally appreciate that extension of assistance. Again, also, I want to thank you guys. My wife reminded me that this is my last month sitting up here with you guys. So, again, I want to thank you for the time I share. I mean, we may not always agree on everything, but we do take the opportunity and time to listen to each other, and we hash things out. I think as a community, that's what we're supposed to do, representing all of those in our community. And in our community, we all don't agree, but we like to be heard. And I think that's one of the things that we've been able to do. There was a couple of times where it was a little bumpy, but I think we've worked through it well. And I just want to thank you guys again for allowing me to sit up here with you guys and kind of guide the city of Brevard and its citizens to a brighter future.
Thank you, Mr. Jones. Ms. Dinkins?
Seems a little early. Are we taking an extended,
Well, if you think-
goodbye?
If you think about it, what, two more meetings? 2 more meetings?
That's it? Wow. Well, I'm going to enjoy those 2 meetings.
One more in October.
I rarely compliment staff, and I'm aware of that because I believe that is not necessarily my role sitting up here. But I do want to highlight my excitement for the work that Becky McCann has put in a very short amount of time. I am now no longer cringing when I go to our website, which for a very long time featured a flooded parking lot as the main picture. And it's become just so much more friendly and inviting and representative of who we are. I have not been able yet to make time to see the 3-minute intro to the agenda, but I'm really excited about that too. That was part of my work when I was a community reporter. You would make sure that people knew what was on the agenda the day before the meeting so that you could decide whether you would want to attend a meeting or pay attention to a meeting or pay attention to stories in the newspaper afterwards. So I think that is really, really wonderful, and I'm going to leave it at that. Thank you, Becky.
Mr. Morrow?
I'm good, thank you.
Mr. Daniel?
Yeah, I would like to repeat something that was said during public hearing about the pro-housing grants, that, yes, we have to use every tool that we can get. Our needs are dire, as we've said many times, and I think that point is well taken, and I think we should keep that in mind. I would also agree with the other comment that you have to look at grants carefully. You have to know what strings are attached, if there are any. But that does not mean that we should not move forward with this grant and by any means, in my mind. So, thank you.
Mr. Baker?
Yeah, I echo some of that and just remark that I'm proud that this city is not just laying back and complaining about the problem of housing, but we're actively trying to work on it. And it's hard. I think me personally, I sometimes can get frustrated about the size of the issue and how daunting a task it is to try to put a dent in it. But I think it's important to remember that every little thing we do is going to help us, and it's much better than the alternative of just sitting back and letting the problem get bigger. So I want to thank everybody up here for setting that priority and for staff for taking it seriously and just know that it doesn't go unnoticed that these things are coming before us almost every meeting now, which I think is great progress. One quick request potentially of the city manager. We've had a couple of our boards that need to cancel meetings, sometimes a couple of months in a row. And when that happens, the minutes for the previous meeting sometimes go a long time without getting posted. And I understand that the minutes need to be approved. I'm wondering if there's a way that we could post draft minutes or before they get approved, just so that for the benefit of citizens, I've had a couple people reach out to me on this, that, there was a meeting a few months back and subsequent meetings were canceled, so those minutes were never approved and never posted. So I'd like to look into, in the interest of more transparency and communication, getting those posted, even if it's clear that they're draft minutes.
We'll look into it, yes, sir.
And then lastly, I just want to mention a couple of candidate forums that are coming up. We've got an exciting group of 6 candidates running for 3 seats, which I think is pretty great for the city. The NAACP is holding a forum at the Mary C. Jenkins Center this Saturday at 7 o'clock, I think. The Brevard Bike Alliance is holding a forum at 185 King Street on Monday, a week from today, at 6 o'clock. And then, of course, the Chamber of Commerce is having theirs on October 18th at 5:30, and that's at the library in the Roger Room. I think there are a couple of others that I maybe missed that Deer Lake is having
Deer
one.
Lake it's only for Deer Lake residents, though.
Okay. So those are great opportunities. I think, sometimes it's a struggle in a small town with in a small media market landscape that these races are kind of hard to cover sometimes. And so citizens don't get the benefit of that coverage. And so it sometimes takes a little bit more of an active role on the part of citizens to get educated. And I want to thank the candidates for being willing to participate in those forums. So hopefully you'll go and check it out.
Thank you. Mr. Attorney.
Nothing to add. Thank you.
Hi. Madam Clerk.
I have nothing to add either. Thank you.
Mr. Manager.
A couple of you have asked me about the conclusion of the Main Street repaving project and some punch list items that have still yet to be performed. And the mayor has actually reached out to Wanda Austin of Division 14 with a question of her own. And so I hope that Wanda responds to us here expeditiously. And when she does, I'll share her information and the information I have with you all. So be on the lookout for that here in the days to come.
Is that it, Mr. Manager?
That's it. Yes, ma'am.
Yeah, I will say Miss Wanda Austin has acknowledged the issue and has sent it on to her construction staff to get us some answers. So I am hoping, very optimistic that we'll have an answer soon on some of the issues about the street paving. Just a couple of things. First, I just want to congratulate our Chamber of Commerce. They celebrated their 100th anniversary last Friday at the gala. I think some of you all were there. It was a wonderful event. But, that says something about the strength of our business community and how it works together. And, we have, I forget the number, I think it's over 400 members in the chamber. It's amazing in this small town, this small community. But it was wonderful to be there with them, with our business community, to celebrate how we support one another, how we really work for the economic well-being of our businesses, our community, our residents. It's that teamwork and that collaboration. So congratulations to the Brevard, Transylvania Chamber of Commerce on your 100th anniversary, and I look forward to working with you on many other future anniversaries. And I do want to single out one person that got an award. One of our staff members got an award Friday night, and that is Mr. Tyree Griffin got an award as the Young Leader. So, congratulations, Tyree. That was absolutely wonderful. They picked just the perfect person as the upcoming Young Leader Award. So, I also, last week, I had the privilege of representing our city at a 4-county forum of mayors that Land of Sky put together. And, you know, it brings to mind, I think one of the gentlemen commented here tonight about how regionalization and working together was so important. Well, you know, we had, I think, 5 mayors from the region get together, and we all have the same issues. We all brought up housing as the most critical issue. We brought up infrastructure, which is a critical component of being able to have housing. And we brought up economic development because the three go hand in hand. They are so interrelated. But I think what struck me is the real need to have that greater collaboration, that greater regional working together, sharing information, and speaking with the power of the region's voice when we want to get things changed, when we want to go to Raleigh, when we want to deal with policy issues. You know, we come up with a lot of great initiatives. I absolutely commend our staff for the Pro Housing Grant, for approaching that, for looking at our code, looking at how we can make some modifications that will help us, you know, with these issues. But we often need to go beyond what we can do as a city, what we have the intrinsic power to change. And so that type of collaboration is something that I really think we do need to concentrate on. It's something I have been working on as mayor, and I'm happy to say that all of the other mayors and the Land of Sky leadership pretty much, I would say, agreed. And they are actually looking at how to create forums so we can do this better and to come up with actionable items so that we can really harness the power of all of us and deal with some of these issues that just transcend each and every individual city. So I think with that, we are ready to transition into our closed sessions.
That's correct. If I may request that a motion be made to enter into closed session for purposes of potential property acquisition.
Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, we are moving into closed session. Please clear the room, and I believe we will take a 10-minute break before we